He did not simply leave. He sat across a dinner table from the woman he claimed to love, looked her in the eyes, and told her that if she continued the pregnancy, he wanted nothing to do with her or the child. She said she understood. She did not cry in front of him. She waited until he left the restaurant, and then she sat alone in a corner booth for 40 minutes, while the waiter pretended not to notice. She ordered nothing. She stared at the table. She pressed her hands flat against the wood surface the way she sometimes did when she needed to feel something solid and real beneath her. Outside, Daniel Carter walked to his car, drove home to his apartment, poured himself a drink, and told himself he had made the right decision. 8 months later, she was in a delivery room without him, and the doctor said words neither of them had expected. Not one heartbeat, two. And somewhere across the city, the man who had issued that ultimatum was about to receive a phone call that would force him to face every single thing he had chosen to walk away from. This is that story. They met the way most important things happen, without planning and without warning. Simone was 24, finishing her final year of nursing school, working weekend shifts at a downtown Cincinnati coffee shop to cover the gap between her scholarship and her rent. Daniel was 28, a civil engineer 3 years into a career that was moving faster than he had anticipated and demanding more than he had budgeted for emotionally. He came in every Saturday morning. Large black coffee, same corner table, same focused silence over whatever he was reading. She refilled his cup without being asked. Because she noticed things about people, it was simply how she was built. And she had noticed that he was the kind of person who got so absorbed in thought that he forgot to take care of basic things like asking for more coffee. He noticed her. "You always refill it before I realize it's empty," he said one Saturday. "You always look like you're solving something important," she said. "Civil engineering," he replied. "Bridge load calculations." "Nursing school," she answered. "People," he smiled. "Which is more complicated?" She considered this seriously, the way she considered most things. "People. Bridges stay where you put them." He laughed. It was the first genuinely unguarded thing she had seen from him, and it changed his face completely. They exchanged numbers that afternoon. Their first date lasted 4 hours and covered everything that mattered. He told her about growing up in Columbus, his parents' quiet and stable marriage, and his decision to study engineering because he loved the logic of building things that held weight and served a purpose. She told him about growing up in a single-parent household in Dayton, her mother working 2 nursing jobs to keep them stable, her choice to follow the same path because she had watched her mother heal people and understood it as the most meaningful work she could imagine. "Your mother raised you alone?" Daniel asked. "From the time I was 7, Simone said. "My father left, not dramatically. He just gradually became someone who called less and visited less until one day he simply didn't anymore." Daniel was quiet for a moment. "That must have shaped how you see things." "It shaped everything," she said simply. "That's why I don't do it halfway." She said it without weight or warning, the way people state truths they have carried long enough that they no longer feel heavy. Daniel heard it and filed it somewhere, and did not fully understand its significance until much later. They fell into each other with the particular ease of 2 people who are genuinely compatible and know it. 6 months of Saturday mornings, becoming Saturday afternoons, becoming evenings. His apartment became familiar to her. Her presence became something he structured his week around, without realizing he had done it. He was methodical and precise, and sometimes so focused on what he was building toward that he needed someone to remind him to be present in what he already had. She was warm and observant, and quietly strong in the way of people who learned early that strength was not optional. They balanced each other, or so it seemed. What neither of them examined closely enough was the question of what they each meant by the word future. The morning Simone found out she was alone in her apartment bathroom with a test she had bought quietly, telling herself it was probably nothing, that she was probably wrong, that there was almost certainly a simpler explanation for what her body had been telling her for 2 weeks. There wasn't 2 lines, clear and immediate. She sat on the edge of the bathtub for a long time. She was 24 years old, 4 months from finishing nursing school, in a relationship that was serious, but had never explicitly discussed children or timelines, or what they each actually wanted from the years ahead. She thought about her mother, about corner booths and difficult news, and the particular kind of strength that arrives not because circumstances are manageable, but because there is simply no alternative. She pressed her hand against her stomach. Then she called Daniel and asked if he could meet her for dinner. He arrived at the restaurant before her, already at the table, already smiling in the uncomplicated way he smiled when he was genuinely happy to see her. That smile made what she was about to say harder, and she sat down and ordered water, and looked at him across the table, and understood that the next few minutes would divide their story into a before and after. She told him directly, the way she did everything, no preamble, no softening. She was pregnant. She was keeping it. She wanted to talk about what that meant for them. The smile left his face, not gradually, all at once, like a power cut. He was quiet for a long time, long enough that the waiter came and went without either of them ordering. "Simone," he finally said, "we're not ready for this. I know it's not what we planned. It's not what I planned at all." His voice was careful in the way of someone choosing words to construct a specific argument. "I'm 3 years into my career. I have student debt. I was just offered a position in Seattle that I've been considering for months. You didn't tell me about Seattle." He looked briefly uncomfortable. "I was still thinking about it. And now there's this." He gestured vaguely at the space between them, at her, at the information she had just placed on the table alongside the breadbasket and the unordered drinks. "Simone, I am not in a position to be a father right now. I am not ready for that responsibility. Nobody is ever completely ready. Some people are more ready than others." He leaned forward. "There are options. Responsible options that people in our situation consider all the time." Simone looked at him steadily. "Say what you mean, Daniel." "I mean that we are young, and we have careers ahead of us, and there is a reasonable, medical, completely legal option that would allow us to continue our lives without—" "No?" The word was quiet and absolute. "You haven't even considered—" "I don't need to consider it, no." He sat back. She watched something move across his face that she hadn't seen there before and didn't have a name for yet. "Then I need you to understand something," he said. "If you continue this pregnancy, I cannot be part of it. I am not able to be what that situation requires. I am not built for it, and I am not going to pretend otherwise." The restaurant noise continued around them. Silverware, conversation, someone laughing at another table. Simone said she understood. She did not cry in front of him. She waited until he left. And then she sat alone in that corner booth for 40 minutes, with her hands flat on the table, and the waiter quietly leaving her alone, and the full understanding settling into her bones that she was going to do this without him. That she was, in fact, going to do this the way her mother had done everything, alone and completely. If you have ever been told your strength was a problem someone else wasn't equipped to handle, comment the word unbreakable right now, because what Simone did next will show you exactly what that word means. The practical realities arrived quickly and without sympathy. Simone finished her final nursing school semester while pregnant, sitting through lectures and clinical rotations with the particular focus of someone who has decided that circumstances do not determine outcomes. Her professors knew. Some were kind, some were professionally neutral. All of them watched her, and none of them saw her waver. She moved out of her apartment when the lease ended and into her mother's house in Dayton, the same house she had grown up in, with the same kitchen where her mother had made dinner after double shifts, and the same porch where they had sat on summer evenings and talked about everything except the man who had stopped calling. Her mother, Gloria, did not say "I told you so." She did not say anything dramatic at all. She simply moved things around to make room, converted the sewing room into a nursery, and started attending every prenatal appointment with the focused energy of someone accepting a new assignment. "You're not doing this alone," Gloria said on the first night. "I want that to be clear." "I know, Mama. I mean it. I've done it alone. This isn't that." Simone believed her. And still there were hours, specifically the hours between 2 and 4 in the morning when the house was quiet and her body was changing, in ways that were simultaneously miraculous and frightening. When alone was exactly what she felt. She did not perform this feeling for anyone. She simply sat with it in the dark, and then got up in the morning and continued. Daniel, meanwhile, had accepted the Seattle position. She found out through a mutual friend, not through him. He had sent 2 texts in the months following the restaurant. Both were brief and practical, asking about her health. In the detached way of someone fulfilling an obligation they had decided to limit, she had answered both. She had not reached out herself. She was 16 weeks pregnant when she went in for a routine ultrasound. The technician was young and professional, and moved the wand across Simone's stomach with practiced efficiency. Gloria sat in the chair beside the bed, holding Simone's hand with both of hers. "Everything looks good," the technician said, studying the screen. Then, after a pause that lasted exactly long enough to change everything, "Let me just confirm something here." Simone watched her face. "Ms. Simone," the technician said, turning the screen, "are you seeing 2 sacs?" Gloria stood up from her chair. "I'm seeing 2 sacs," the technician confirmed, more to herself than to them, moving the wand carefully. 2 distinct heartbeats. "Miss Simone, you're carrying twins." The room was very quiet for a moment. Then Gloria sat back down and pressed her daughter's hand between both of hers and said, "Well, we're going to need a bigger car." Simone stared at the screen. 2 small, flickering lights. 2 heartbeats where she had expected 1. The man who had told her to end this pregnancy did not know that he had actually asked her to end 2. She thought about texting him. She decided against it. Some information, she understood, has a way of arriving at exactly the right time. Daniel Carter would find out about his twins, but it would not be on his schedule or his terms. It would be when the universe decided he had waited long enough. 3 time zones away, Daniel Carter was building a career and dismantling himself quietly. The Seattle position was everything he had been told it would be. Senior project manager on a major infrastructure development. A team of 12. A salary that removed the financial anxiety he had carried since graduation. An apartment with a view of the water that he had furnished carefully and lived in with the organized efficiency that characterized everything he did. From the outside, his life looked exactly like a successful plan. From the inside, it felt like a room where the air was slowly being replaced with something thinner. He worked. He exercised with the discipline of someone who needed physical structure to compensate for emotional disorder. He attended professional events and said the right things to the right people and was told repeatedly that he was going places. He called his parents every Sunday and answered their questions about his life with the partial truths that had become his primary mode of communication. He did not tell them about Simone. He did not tell them about the pregnancy, or his response to it, or the restaurant, or the 40 minutes she had sat alone in that corner booth. He had filed all of it in a place he did not visit. The way you put something in a box and push the box to the back of a shelf and tell yourself that the act of containment is the same as resolution. It wasn't. The box had a way of opening itself at inconvenient times. 3 in the morning, when he couldn't sleep. During long project meetings, when his mind drifted without his permission. On Saturday mornings, when he made his own coffee in his own kitchen and remembered a girl who had refilled his cup before he knew it was empty because she noticed things about people. He had looked at her profile once, 2 months after arriving in Seattle. At 2 a.m., with a disciplined failure that lasted approximately 40 minutes, she had posted a single image, a close-up of 2 tiny knitted hats, one yellow and one white, laid side by side on what appeared to be a wooden surface. The caption said, "Making room." He had not understood what it meant. He had closed the app and not returned. He told himself regularly and with decreasing conviction that he had made the correct decision, that he was not equipped for fatherhood, that forcing himself into a role he wasn't ready for would have produced damage rather than family, that Simone was strong and capable and would be fine, and that his absence was ultimately the responsible choice. The argument became harder to sustain as months passed, not because the logic changed, but because logic, he was discovering, is a very poor companion at 3 a.m. He was in a project review meeting in the 8th floor conference room, city spread out through the windows below him, when his phone began vibrating on the table beside his laptop. Unknown number, Ohio area code. He silenced it and returned to the meeting. It rang again, 30 seconds later, and again. He excused himself and stepped into the hallway. "Is this Daniel Carter?" A woman's voice, formal and unhurried, speaking. "Mr. Carter, my name is Sandra Willis. I'm a delivery nurse at Miami Valley Hospital in Dayton, Ohio. I'm calling on behalf of Gloria Mercer, who has listed you as an emergency contact for her daughter, Simone Mercer." Daniel's hand tightened on the phone. Simone was admitted this morning. She went into labor at 34 weeks. A brief pause. "Mr. Carter, I want to make sure you have the complete information. She's delivering twins. Both babies are presenting well, but the delivery is in progress and the family feels you should be informed." The hallway was very quiet. "Twins," Daniel said. "Two babies, yes, sir. A boy and a girl from what the ultrasound indicates." He stood in that hallway for a long time after the call ended. His reflection looked back at him from the dark glass of the conference room window. Senior project manager. Seattle apartment with a water view. A life that looked exactly like a plan succeeding. Two babies. He had told her to end this pregnancy. There had been two lives inside her when he said it. He walked back into the conference room, closed his laptop, and picked up his jacket. "I need to leave," he told his team. "Book me the next flight to Dayton." His project lead stared at him. "We're in the middle of a review." "I know." Daniel was already moving toward the door. "I'll explain when I get back. Right now I have to go somewhere I should have been 8 months ago. If someone needs to hear that it is never too late to choose differently, share this story right now. And subscribe to Mr. Ravel's stories, because some lessons only land when the story is told right. The flight to Dayton was 2 hours and 40 minutes. Daniel spent the first hour staring at the seat back in front of him, running through everything he had told himself over the past 8 months, and examining each justification with the cold precision of an engineer looking for structural failure. He found it everywhere. He had told himself he wasn't ready, but readiness, he now understood, was not a threshold you crossed before accepting responsibility. It was something that developed inside the responsibility itself. You did not become ready and then become a parent. You became a parent, and the becoming never stopped. He had told himself he wasn't built for it, but what he'd meant was that he was afraid of it. Those were not the same thing, and he had been using them interchangeably for 8 months, as though the distinction didn't matter. It was the central dishonesty of everything he had done. He had told himself Simone would be fine. She clearly was, but fine was not the point. The point was that she should not have had to be fine alone. The point was that he had made a demand of a woman carrying his children, and when she had the integrity to refuse him, he had walked away and called it a decision. He pressed his head back against the seat. 2 babies. She had been carrying 2 lives when he sat across that table and delivered his ultimatum. She had known or not known. It didn't matter. Either way, she had said no. Either way, she had sat alone in that booth for 40 minutes. Either way, she had finished nursing school and moved home and built something without him. And he had built a very nice apartment. The second hour he spent trying to think of what to say. He gave up after 20 minutes. There were no words available that were proportionate to what he had done and what she had endured. Any speech he constructed felt like an attempt to resolve something that deserved to remain unresolved until he had actually earned the right to resolution. He would not arrive with a speech. He would arrive. That would have to be the beginning. Miami Valley Hospital was a maze of corridors and elevator banks that a nurse at the information desk helped him navigate. His shirt was wrinkled from the flight. He hadn't eaten since morning. He carried nothing. No flowers, no gift, no carefully chosen offering to smooth his entrance into a situation his absence had made. The maternity ward was quieter than he expected. Gloria was in the hallway outside the NICU when he stepped off the elevator. She was a small woman with Simone's posture and Simone's eyes and an expression that conveyed, without any words at all, the full accounting of the past 8 months. They looked at each other. "She doesn't know I'm here," Daniel said. "No. How is she?" "Exhausted, relieved. Stronger than anyone I've ever known." Gloria studied him the way a person studies a structure they're not sure they can trust. "The babies are in the NICU. They're small, but they're healthy. Fighting. Can I see her?" Gloria was quiet for a moment. "She told me not to call you." "I know. I called you anyway." She paused. "Because those babies deserve every possible chance. And because Simone is stronger than she should have had to be. And I am her mother. I am not going to let pride make a decision that belongs to her children." Her eyes held him steadily. "Don't make me regret it." "I won't," Daniel said. Gloria studied him for another moment. Then she stepped aside. Room 318 was at the end of the corridor. Daniel walked it slowly, each step covering ground he had spent 8 months creating. At the door he stopped. He could hear the soft sounds of the ward. Somewhere a newborn was crying. Somewhere a monitor beeped in its steady, patient rhythm. He knocked once and pushed the door open. Simone was sitting up in the hospital bed, pale with exhaustion, her hair pulled back, wearing a hospital gown that had nothing to do with the way he remembered her. She was looking at something in her hands, a photograph, he realized. 2 ultrasound images held together. She looked up. For a long moment, neither of them said anything. "My mother called you," she said finally. "Not a question." "Yes, I told her not to." "I know." He remained near the door, not advancing, giving her the distance she had not been given 8 months ago in that restaurant. "I'm not here to make demands or deliver speeches. I just needed you to know that I came." Simone looked at him with eyes that had learned, across 8 months of doing everything alone, to evaluate rather than simply feel. She was measuring something. He understood he had very little credit in whatever accounting she was doing. "Have you seen them?" she asked. "Not yet. I came to you first." Something shifted slightly in her expression. Not warmth, not forgiveness. Simply notation. He had come to her first. "They're in the NICU," she said. "A boy and a girl. 4 pounds each, which is good for 34 weeks. What are their names?" "I've been waiting for that." She said it simply, without accusation, though the weight of it landed anyway. She had been waiting. Despite everything, she had been waiting. "I'd like to see them," Daniel said, "if you'll allow it." Simone looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached for the call button and pressed it. "Ask the nurse to take him to the NICU," she said when the speaker crackled. "Tell her he's the father." The father? 2 words he had spent 8 months refusing, and that she had just given him anyway. Not as a gift, but as a fact. An insistence on accuracy over emotion, on what was true over what was easy. He understood, standing in that doorway, that she was not forgiving him. She was simply refusing to let her children pay for what he had done. It was a more generous and more demanding thing than forgiveness. The NICU was hushed and fluorescent, a world of small battles and careful hope. A nurse showed Daniel to the incubators, 2 of them side by side, and explained the monitors and the tubes and the meaning of the numbers on the screens. He stood at the first incubator and looked at his son. The baby was impossibly small, a knitted yellow hat on his head. The same color, Daniel realized, as one of the hats in the photograph Simone had posted months ago. Making room? He understood it now. "Can I touch him?" Daniel asked. "Through the porthole here," the nurse said, guiding his hand. Daniel reached through the opening and placed 1 finger against his son's palm. The baby's fingers curled around it in a reflex grip that had nothing to do with recognition or forgiveness or earned trust. It was simply biology, simply life doing what life does. It broke something open in Daniel's chest that had been sealed for a very long time. He stood there for a long time. Then he moved to his daughter's incubator and did the same thing. 1 finger offered, tiny fingers accepting. The same wordless transaction. He had told Simone to end this. He was holding the evidence of how wrong he had been. And it weighed 4 pounds, and it was the most significant thing he had ever touched. When he returned to Simone's room, she was asleep. He sat in the chair beside her bed without waking her. Gloria appeared in the doorway an hour later, looked at him sitting there, looked at her sleeping daughter, and said nothing. She brought him a cup of coffee from the machine down the hall and set it on the tray table beside him. It was not forgiveness. It was not welcome. It was coffee, and it was a beginning. What came after was not a love story, in the way people expect love stories to be told. There was no dramatic reconciliation scene, no speech that repaired what had been broken, no moment where Simone looked at Daniel and decided that his arrival canceled his absence. What there was work. Daniel requested a transfer back to Cincinnati. His company's regional office was smaller, and the position less prestigious, but he filed the paperwork without hesitation and did not mention it to Simone until it was approved, because he had decided that actions needed to precede announcements. He found an apartment 12 minutes from her mother's house and signed a year lease. He showed up. That was the beginning, and the middle, and the slow, unglamorous foundation of everything else. He showed up for the twice-weekly NICU visits, learning the names of the nurses and the meaning of every number on every monitor. He showed up when Simone called at 11 p.m. because the boy, who they eventually named Marcus, had a concerning reading that turned out to be a monitor malfunction. He showed up on the morning. The girl, Maya, was cleared from the NICU, and he helped carry equipment to the car and installed the car seat correctly on the third attempt, while Gloria watched from the doorway without comment. He learned to change a diaper with the serious focus of an engineer approaching an unfamiliar system. He learned that Marcus needed to be held upright for 20 minutes after feeding, or the evening would go badly for everyone. He learned that Maya made a specific sound immediately before crying that gave you approximately a 15-second window to intervene. He learned these things because he was present enough to learn them. Simone watched all of this without comment, and without warmth, and without coldness. She watched with the evaluative patience of someone who had been given information once and found it unreliable and was now collecting a different kind of data entirely. Trust did not arrive like a decision. It arrived like weather, gradually and without announcement, until one day you looked up and realized the climate had changed. The first sign was the night Simone went to a nursing colleague's going-away dinner and left both babies with Daniel for 3 hours, without calling once to check. The second was the morning she handed him the pediatrician's contact card without explaining what it was for, simply assuming he would know. The third was a Tuesday evening in the kitchen when both babies were finally asleep, and she made 2 cups of tea without asking whether he wanted one and set him in front of him, and they sat together in the quiet and talked, really talked, for the first time since before the restaurant, about Marcus and Maya, about her plans to specialize in pediatric nursing, about the bridge project he was working on, and what it meant to build something designed to hold weight for 100 years. "Do you think about it?" she asked eventually. "What you said at the restaurant?" "Every day," he answered. "What do you think?" "That I was afraid, and I dressed it up as practicality." He looked at his cup. "That I asked you to make a permanent decision to solve a temporary feeling. That I was wrong in a way that I don't think sorry fully covers." Simone was quiet for a moment. "It doesn't," she agreed. "Sorry, it doesn't cover it." "I know, but showing up helps." She said it simply, not as absolution, simply as fact, not because it erases anything. Because Marcus and Maya deserve a father who shows up. And because I am tired of letting what you did determine what they get. It was the most direct thing she had said to him since he had returned. It was not the beginning of forgiveness. It was the beginning of a decision, her decision made on her terms, in her time, to allow the possibility of something that worked for her children, even if it remained unresolved for her. That distinction mattered to her. He was learning to honor it. The twins turned 1 in the spring. Simone's mother hosted the party in the backyard of the Dayton house, stringing lights between the trees the way she had once strung them when Simone was small and the world had felt manageable. Daniel arrived early and helped set up tables without being asked. His parents came from Columbus, meeting their grandchildren for the first time, his mother crying within approximately 40 seconds of holding Maya and not apologizing for it. Simone watched Daniel's mother hold her daughter, watched Daniel watch his mother, watching something move across his face that she recognized as grief for lost time and gratitude for present time existing simultaneously. the complicated emotion of someone who understands exactly what almost missing something means. Later, after the guests had gone and the babies were asleep, and Gloria was washing dishes inside, Daniel and Simone sat on the porch steps in the evening quiet. "She has your hands," Simone said. "Maya, Marcus has your focus," Daniel replied, "the way he stares at something when he's figuring it out." They sat with this for a while. "I don't know what we are," Simone said eventually. "I want to be honest about that. I don't know what I feel toward you yet. Some days it's closer to okay than others." "I know," Daniel said. "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I'm not asking for anything at all." "Then what are you doing?" He thought about it. "Showing up," he said. "Until it means something again, or until you decide it can't. Either way, I'm not leaving them. And I'm not leaving you to do this alone again." Simone looked out at the yard where the lights still glowed between the trees. "My father left," she said. "He didn't leave dramatically. He just gradually stopped showing up until one day he didn't anymore." "I know. You told me that on our first date." She looked at him. "I did. I should have understood what you were telling me." "Yes," she said. "You should have." The honesty of it sat between them, without apology on either side. He had failed to understand something she had told him clearly. She had lived with the consequences. Both of those things were true, and neither of them pretended otherwise. "I'm not going anywhere," Daniel said. Simone looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked back at the yard. "I know," she said quietly. "It was not 'I forgive you.' It was not 'I love you.' It was two words that meant something more durable than either of those things in this particular moment. It was 'I believe you.' And for now, built on 8 months of showing up and the patient accumulation of ordinary trustworthy moments, it was enough to build on. If this story reached something in you, share it right now with someone who needs to hear that showing up, even late, even imperfect, even without the right words, is still the most important thing a person can do. Subscribe to Mr. Ravel's Stories, where every story is told to remind you that the people worth fighting for are usually the ones you almost walked away from. He told her to end it. She said no. And the 2 lives she chose to bring into the world became the reason he finally chose to become the man he should have been from the beginning. Some people find themselves in a hospital corridor. Some people find themselves on a porch step in the quiet after a birthday party. But everyone, if they are honest, knows the exact moment they were given the choice between fear and love. Daniel Carter made the wrong choice first. The grace of his story is that he was given the chance to make the right one, and this time he did not walk away.